Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to tonight's broadcast. I'm Thomas Walker, bringing you a tale of mystery, a story that lingers in the shadows of aviation history. The year is 1971, and the scene is set on an afternoon like any other, though nothing would be ordinary about the events unfolding. It's Thanksgiving Eve, November 24th, to be precise. The time? Just after 3 in the afternoon. The place? Portland, Oregon. Northwest Orient Airlines. Flight 305 is preparing for departure. A 30-minute hop from Portland to Seattle. Among the passengers, one stands out. A man of medium height, dressed in a dark business suit, black tie, and an air of quiet confidence. He's carrying an old-fashioned briefcase, and his name, or so he claims, is Dan Cooper. Nothing about him strikes anyone as extraordinary at first. He purchases his one-way ticket, sits in a rear seat on the Boeing 727, and orders a bourbon and soda. But this man, seemingly so unremarkable, is about to set in motion one of the most baffling mysteries in the history of American aviation. Before the plane has even reached cruising altitude, he leans toward a flight attendant, slips her a note. She assumes it's just another lonely man's number. But when she opens the note, the message is chilling. "I have a bomb," it reads. "Sit with me." The stewardess, understandably alarmed, does as she's told. The briefcase opens, and she catches a glimpse of what seems to be a mass of wires and red cylinders, something that might have been taken from a bomb-making textbook. It's enough to send a shiver down anyone's spine. The man, Cooper, as we now call him, has demands. He asked for $200,000 in cash in $20 bills and 4 parachutes. The plane will be rerouted to Seattle, where these demands will be met. It's a strange thing, isn't it? A man armed with a bomb, hijacking a plane, and yet his focus is on getting away with the money, not by mere escape, but by jumping from that plane, parachute in hand. The crew, under duress, arranges for the ransom, and the plane circles above Seattle, giving law enforcement and airport personnel the time they need. Around 5:45 p.m., Flight 305 touches down in Seattle. The passengers are told it's just a minor mechanical issue causing the delay. One by one, they disembark, but Cooper stays behind. What follows is almost too bizarre to believe. With a ransom bag heavy with money and the 4 parachutes he requested, Cooper instructs the crew to refuel the plane. He has a new destination in mind, Mexico City. Yet Cooper's plan will take an unexpected turn. In a few hours, he will do something that will leave everyone, passengers, crew, and law enforcement alike, speechless. Just after 8 p.m., as the plane soars above the darkened Pacific Northwest, Cooper instructs the crew to prepare the aircraft for his daring escape. He opens the rear stairs, and in an audacious act, steps out into the frigid night air. His parachute straps securely, the ransom bag tied around his waist, and then he's gone. The plane continues on its path, unaware of what has just happened. It's only after the descent into Reno, several hours later, that the truth becomes clear. D.B. Cooper, the man who had hijacked the plane, the man who had made his demands, the man who had jumped into the night, has disappeared. The flight attendants and crew who last saw him in the back of the plane can only wonder. Was he still aboard? Was he gone for good? And that, ladies and gentlemen, is where our story begins. A man who vanished without a trace, and a mystery that has endured for over 50 years. But despite his disappearance, the search for Cooper was just beginning. In the hours following his jump, authorities scrambled. By the time the plane landed safely in Reno, Nevada, agents and local police had already begun their investigation. The aircraft was searched thoroughly. The passengers were questioned, though most had only hazy memories of the quiet man who had been seated in the back row. The only clear physical evidence left behind was a black clip-on tie, a tie clip, a few cigarette butts, and strangely enough, Cooper's quiet demeanor. Nothing in the cabin seemed out of place except for the cold reality that Cooper was gone, and with him, $200,000 in unmarked bills, $10,000 in total. The parachutes, too, remained aboard. 2 of them unused. But there was one more key detail, one that would send the investigation in an unexpected direction. Cooper's meticulous care to retrieve anything that could link him to the crime. Flight attendants Tina Mucklow and Florence Schaffner both recalled Cooper asking for his matchbook, the one from which he'd lit his cigarettes, saying it was to be returned to him. In fact, Mucklow had used the last match to light one of his cigarettes, but when she went to discard the empty book, he demanded she hand it back. It was as if he knew, deep down, that every trace of him needed to be erased. Yet even with all his efforts to eliminate clues, Cooper left one item behind. A tie, a small thing, you might think. But in that small item, the FBI would find something unexpected. The tie, a cheap clip-on, became one of their most important pieces of evidence. It was discarded in his seat, 18E, the place where he'd sat quietly during the flight. In the years that followed, forensic investigators studied that tie, its fabric, its stitching, its very essence. They discovered traces of human hair, but the investigation would take a strange turn as these traces yielded little. Even more mysteriously, the DNA found on the tie did not match Cooper's known descriptions. The strands seemed to lead nowhere, and though the authorities painstakingly examined the fabric under the microscope, their findings were eerily inconclusive. Still, they pressed on. The search area for Cooper's landing was calculated, though it was a daunting task. The landscape below was wild, untamed, dense forests, rolling hills, the cold rivers cutting through them like veins. The plane's path, though tracked precisely by radar, still left too many unknowns. The wind, the dark sky, and the fact that Cooper had jumped from the plane without any clear idea of where he would land. Well, it made finding him even more difficult. But one thing was certain. Cooper had chosen his drop zone with some care. He knew the geography, no doubt about it. As the aircraft neared Seattle, he'd remarked on the view below, casually identifying Tacoma, mentioning the proximity of McCord Air Force Base. Not the words of an ordinary hijacker, you see. The man appeared to be well versed in the area, possibly even the terrain, perhaps even the aviation details that others might miss. The next day, a new clue surfaced, one that would take the search in another direction. In the early hours of December 6, 1971, an Air Force SR-71 Blackbird, sent to retrace the plane's flight path, was tasked with photographing the area in hopes of locating any items Cooper might have discarded during his jump. Yet, as the Blackbird soared above the landscape, the efforts proved futile. The visibility was poor, and despite the high-tech equipment, the photographs yielded nothing of importance. Once again, the search seemed to slip through the fingers of investigators. But then, the unthinkable occurred. In February of 1980, nearly 9 years after the hijacking, a young boy vacationing along the Columbia River stumbled upon something. 3 packages of cash, wrapped in rubber bands, just as they had been when handed to Cooper. The money, $5,800 in total, had been exposed to the elements, its edges frayed and disintegrating, but the serial numbers matched the ransom money given to Cooper. It was a strange discovery. And yet, it opened a new door to the mystery. How had the money, which Cooper must have kept on him, ended up here, miles away from the plane's path? Did Cooper drop it along the way, or had it been hidden, buried, forgotten? The find ignited a new round of speculation. Could Cooper have survived the jump, only to return to the area later? Or had the money somehow been lost, left behind, perhaps even inadvertently, by the hijacker? Forensic teams scoured the riverbanks, but the answers seemed as elusive as the man himself. And the FBI? They were no closer to finding Cooper than they had been years before. Their investigation had expanded, reaching across the country, exploring over 800 suspects. Some theories were more plausible than others, but none held enough weight to bring closure. There were suspicions about a man named Richard McCoy, who just months after Cooper's disappearance hijacked another plane. This time with the same demand for parachutes and ransom money. But McCoy's jump was far less spectacular. And, crucially, he did not match Cooper's physical description. So, there it is, the mystery deepening, the search widening, the questions lingering in the air, unanswered. What happened to Cooper after he disappeared into the night? Did he survive the perilous jump? Or did the rugged terrain claim him as its own? Why was the rest of the money never spent? And what happened to Cooper's parachute? Was it discarded in haste, or hidden away, perhaps never opened at all? As the years passed, the case remained open, though the chances of finding answers grew slimmer. Theories continued to grow, each one as tantalizing as the next, and still, the one truth that remains: no one has ever found D.B. Cooper. As we draw near the end of this tale, I leave you with this. When the FBI closed the case in 2016, they declared that, while the investigation had yielded no answers, the files would remain open for public scrutiny. And so, the mystery lingers, unfathomable, unchanged. But one question remains, and it's a question that even after all these years continues to gnaw at the heart of the mystery. What happened to D.B. Cooper? It has been over 50 years since that quiet man boarded the plane in Portland, his mind set on a daring plan that would forever elude the grasp of those who sought to uncover the truth. By now, much has been said, and many theories have been put forth, but still, nothing is certain. The case, officially closed in 2016, remains the only unsolved instance of air piracy in the history of commercial aviation. The years have passed, and though the search has waned, the mystery endures. Hundreds of suspects have been considered, and the FBI's investigation left behind an archive of over 60 volumes, filled with interviews, witness descriptions, and fragments of evidence, clues that have, in the end, led nowhere. And yet, in a way, that's the beauty of it all. D.B. Cooper, if that even was his real name, remains an enigma. A man who executed a perfect crime. A man who disappeared without leaving a trace. A man who knew just enough to stay out of reach. To this day, we still have no concrete answers. Was he an experienced skydiver? A military man, perhaps? Or just a criminal with a keen eye for opportunity? Was he someone from the Pacific Northwest? Or did he simply know the area like the back of his hand? In 1980, when a young boy found the bundle of money along the Columbia River, it reignited interest in the case, bringing hope that the final piece of the puzzle might be found. But it never was. The rest of the money remained untouched, never spent, never even seen again. And the parachute? It too vanished. The key pieces of the mystery seem to scatter further with time, like a story that's slipping through our fingers. Some have wondered whether Cooper survived his jump, that perilous leap into the night sky. Could he have landed safely, perhaps hurt by the unforgiving terrain, but alive? Or did the wind and the freezing temperatures claim him, his body lost to the dense forests of Washington, the dark waters of the Columbia River, or buried beneath the heavy foliage that lines the hillsides? Perhaps he did survive. Perhaps, as some have speculated, he walked away unnoticed, a man who simply faded into the shadows, leaving behind only the remnants of his daring escape. Maybe, somewhere out there, Cooper lives on in a quiet corner of the world, still holding that ransom money, still watching as the mystery he created plays out across the decades. Yet there's something unsettling in the silence of this mystery. We speak of his escape, but the question remains, how could a man, armed with nothing but a briefcase, a plan, and a leap of faith, disappear so completely? What would compel a man to commit such a brazen act and then slip from the world, leaving nothing behind but a trail of unanswered questions? In 1979, a few years after the hijacking, FBI agents decided that Cooper, if alive, would be at least 50 years old. By 2016, the FBI concluded that they would no longer devote resources to the case, officially suspending the investigation. But they left the door ajar, kept the files open, as though leaving a space for someone, someday, to find what had been lost. And still, the questions persist. Were we too quick to close the file? Was the true story never told, lost to time? Perhaps as the years have gone by, the answer has become less important than the question itself. Perhaps in some quiet part of us, we don't want to know what happened. For the mystery, Cooper's mystery, is now a part of us as the years pass. We continue to wonder what happened to that man, the one who vanished with a parachute and a bag of money, never to be seen again. Perhaps the final answer is as simple as it is unsatisfying. We will never truly know. But sometimes, my friends, it's the unknown that haunts us most. It's the unanswered question that echoes in our minds, like the whistle of the wind across a darkened sky. What happened to D.B. Cooper? Perhaps we'll never know, or perhaps in time, the story will find its way home, out there, somewhere, in the quiet spaces between the mysteries we've yet to solve.